Good morning, everybody. I just yelled into that, didn't I? All right. Hopefully, you all were much like me this morning and treated to a wonderful surprise when you walked outside. It was fantastic. Fall is my favorite time of year, absolute favorite season. I love everything about it. And that first crisp, cool fall morning, it feels good. I just want to give you a little insight. Fall is not here. I'm quite confident that the heat is coming back. Also, especially if you were watching online, I know a lot of you all weren't watching online. There's this Circle of Excellence. We had over 50 people in the Circle of Excellence last month. Congratulations, absolutely fantastic. I also found this interesting, and I learned it on my podcast this morning. There's a lot of birthdays in the month of September. In fact, more birthdays in September than any other month of the year, and more birthdays this week in September than any other week of the year. And apparently the next 3 days have the most birthdays of any days of the year. Thank you, December. So happy birthday. And congratulations on the Circle of Excellence. So as I walked outside this morning, I personally, again, I was quite surprised. Had to walk back upstairs, put on a jacket because I was not ready for it. You know, I go through my routine, and so as I walked this morning, I was reminded how grateful I am for each of you for this time of year, this changing of the seasons, and also grateful that as we head into a new season and we're renewed by that season, we also have the opportunity to hear from Milt 6 times a year. And every time I leave a meeting with Milt, I feel renewed and energized and ready to move forward. So we're grateful for the partnership. We're grateful for that you're here this morning, Milt. And take us away.
Stephen. I appreciate the kind words and encouragement. We got to work on some mental toughness. If you had to put a jacket on this morning, it was only 59 degrees. It got my attention, but it was only. So somebody who's keeping notes of what we need to talk about next time, let's make sure we put on mental toughness. Got to get your mind right. Got to get your mind right. I do feel like a part of your family. You guys have been so gracious to me to include me in your growth project and include me in the process. And so I've learned so much about the company and learned so much about each of you. You've helped me get better because when you teach, you have to kind of practice what you preach. And so I learn more by teaching than by doing, and hopefully you're able to take away something from our time together. If we have that deck up, James, thank you so much. I was in Spartanburg yesterday teaching at the Budweiser. That's a cool place to teach. You never taught there. Apparently, I teach better when I drink. No, I'm just teasing. There is no alcohol. But I walk outside, and this is what I see. Like, I'm ready to bust a move. And I was like, they're my people. I'm going to be with my people tomorrow. So I know your presence is felt. I appreciate what your marketing team does, but I had to take a picture of that before I hit the road. Before we peek ahead today and talk about some paradoxes of performance, we met with your leadership team either last time or time before. You guys have seen this slide over and over and over again. But what's really cool, while this is such a big picture of our life story, it's such a microcosm of the moments we've had since I've been with you. I think about what brought our partnership together was, COVID hit. We had no idea what the world was going to do. We had no idea what the market was going to do. And then all of a sudden we've had this unbelievable transformational growth. I mean, just like, hold on. Like, can we take a breath? Can we slow down? How much longer will this last? And then surely, not only in your professional life, but your personal life, there have been some challenges that we faced. And we've hit some dips. And so as we were talking to the leadership team, I just had them reflect back and think about this question here. What's the most difficult challenge you've ever faced in your life? What's been the hardest thing that you've overcome? If you just think back to that moment in time, it may be right now for some of you. But what's the most difficult challenge you've ever experienced? And you think back to that moment, if you're like me, I can see it and I can feel it in my life. I can feel the emotion of what it felt like to be overwhelmed and discouraged and fearful and anxious and scared and terrified. I think back now of how that has made me who I am, how that shaped my life and my experiences. And you go back there, here's what I know. Who was there for you? Like, who met you where you are? Like, one of the things that I'm humbled by over and over again, you've heard me say it, great husbands, great women, great wives, great leaders, great reps make poor gods. Like, the most humbling part of my job is you can't take away someone else's pain. But as Abraham Lincoln said, a problem shared is a problem halved. You can be present in the pain with someone. And I know I've probably told you this before, but the people, when you go through a traumatic event, the research suggests two things. One, you have to be good at something. There has to be something you can do that you're good at, something that makes you you, one of your strengths, and you have to have a good team around you. And so if we go back and look at that person in your life, now the question becomes, who do you show up for? Like, who's that person thinking right now in their life? Like, who is the hardest, like, what's the hardest time of your life? And who was there for you? I didn't mean to get emotional, but I looked at Seaver. He's just been there for me in the hardest time of my life. And I wouldn't be where I am today without him. You weren't supposed to be here and do that to me. But I know I wouldn't be here. And so who do you show up for? Who was there for you? What do you remember about it? And how did it help make you who you are? And our goal is to turn that pain into progress. And you can't do it by yourself. And I bring that up when I think back to this slide here. What was so encouraging me when I think about when this company was founded. Like, I saw the guest Wi-Fi, CB 1933. When I think about when it was founded, I think what was getting ready to come? The Great Depression. Right? That had to be a terrible time to start a real estate company. I can't imagine what that was like. Hey, you know what? I'm going to start a real estate company. Oh, guess what? We got the Great Depression. But that unwavering belief, like in that moment, in those times, like, what is this company built for? Why is it so important to be a part of this family? This is when it creates separation. If it's easy, anybody can do it. The tougher it gets, the better we play. The tougher it gets, the better we are. So that's the mindset when we go through difficult times and face difficult experiences. Who you're about, who you're with, can make the journey a lot less painful and lead to a lot more progress. So I just wanted to kind of bring that back to you as you see this slowdown in the market, as life goes on and moves forward. Think about what you've been through in your life and how that's made you tougher and how it's made you better. So if we look back to this, Viktor Frankl, you've heard me talk about man's search for meaning. He wrote this book reflecting on his time in prison as a Jewish psychiatrist in a concentration camp. And he tried to make observations of who lived and who died. And what he found, the people who lived, the ones who survived, were the ones that found meaning in their suffering. If you aren't going to remember, but part of my vision for my life is to help people find meaning in their suffering. That's how I turned the pain in my life into part of my life. And he says, one of those last quotes he has in the book, the last of man's freedom is one they can never take away. It's his ability to choose his attitude, no matter the situation. That's what freedom is. And I love this quote here. Between stimulus and response, in that space, like, the quality of our growth and our freedom is directly proportional to the quality of our response. So you got a choice to make. How are we going to not let the things that we can't control us? Which leads us to this, right? We come back to this performance model of playing free, of living free. Like, what did he say? In our response lies our growth and our freedom. How are you going to respond? Like, this next play mentality. And so last time we got together, okay, let's try it. Who remembers? What did we do last time? Well, let's test this out. Getting ready to be humbled again. Focus means what? Focus on what? Focus on growth. Focus on, very humbling, being your best. Focus on what you can control. Focus on your why. Relax. That's where we spent some time. There's one part of relax. You spend a lot of time. Quiet your mind, right? As you think, so you are. The other part of relax is what? Quiet Your, no, we already did mind. Heart, no. There's a, how do we respond to stress? Like there's a cognitive response, like by our thoughts, I need to, I have to. There's an emotional response, and there's a physiological response. So we've got to quiet our mind and quiet our body. What happens under stress? That sympathetic nervous system fires, activates everything we need to survive, deactivates everything you don't. What we're trying to do is here we need to add pressure. Here we need to take that pressure away. How do we take that pressure away? We quiet our mind. How do we quiet our body? Remember our mindfulness, our headspace, our calm, our deep breathing. Not one single head nod in the room. And now we finally get a head nod. We get two. Y'all are just feeling sorry for me, right? So the sympathetic nervous system is activated. What deactivates is a parasympathetic. How do we activate the parasympathetic? Just a deep breath. And what we've learned is it's hard to be anxious and relaxed at the same time. It's hard to be overwhelmed and at peace at the same time. It's really hard to be fearful and grateful at the same time. That's why we've talked so much about gratitude. So that's the quiet your mind, quiet your body, engage fully in the present moment. Like forget what's behind, focus on what's ahead, disengage. It's part of that process. Where does performance take place? In the present. We spend a lot of time thinking about how do we enjoy it? How do we develop an attitude of gratitude? How do we live life like we love it? How do we engage with other people like we love them? And how do we show up for work like we love work? And so I hate to bring this up. This is what I asked you to do. Kind of, hey, let's put this into action. How do we create growth? Awareness, action, accountability. So we try to learn an action. We try to feel what it was like to be relaxed. And I said, okay, go buy Headspace. It's $69 a year. Go Calm is a free app. Just do some quiet time reflection. Did anybody put that into practice? One, yes, good. What'd you do?
I got the app.
Okay.
And I used it for
a couple of days. Hey, that is progress. I wish I had a prize to give away. So just for those couple of days, what did it feel like?
It felt nice. I like having a routine, like in the morning, a way to engage my brain in a healthy way. And then at night, I actually encourage my kids to do it with me because there's a kids section.
Good.
And really like that.
It's really good at night if your kids are freaking out over some irrational fear. It's a really good way to teach them to understand their body and how to take that deep breath and how to calm their body while you're speaking encouragement to them. Now, what made you quit it? Why was it so hard?
I went on vacation and,
You didn't eat on vacation. Yeah.
good, and then haven't gotten back into the habit.
So again, anytime I teach, I hope you got to figure out, well, what does this mean? What does it mean to you? And what are you going to do with it? If there's any value. We found great value in quieting our minds and quieting our body, of having that morning routine, especially in a world that is chaotic and unpredictable and uncertain. That routine can set you up for success of how you're going to respond. Go back to Viktor Frankl. Stimulus and response constantly throughout the day. In that space between, we have a chance to choose of how we're going to react. So that's why I want you to really think about quieting your mind, quieting your body. So we shift gears to kind of get back to this playing free. We think about a paradox. When we think about paradoxes of performance, what I try to do is pay attention and be curious. What are the variables that are present when people play at their best? And then what are variables that are present when they are not at their best? And then, I stumbled upon this, 15 years ago and started looking at what are some paradoxes of performance. We think about what a paradox is, a seemingly absurd or self-contradictory statement that may well be true. But at first it kind of grabs your attention. Can anybody think of any paradoxes that come to mind? Just kind of normal, common paradoxes. I pulled some up just if anybody has one that they live by or think by. Here's one: do the thing you think you cannot do. That's a paradox. Telling you to do something you don't think you can do. Limits exist where in the mind. You're damned if you do and damned if you don't. So Eleanor Roosevelt adds to, so do what you feel in your heart is right anyway. I like her part of the quote. Here's another one: the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Think through that one. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Beginning of the end. See how often we speak in paradoxes. The world is so dangerous, it's not safe anymore to be alive. I like this one. Nobody goes to that restaurant, it's too crowded. Don't go near the water until you've learned how to swim. Like, why do you learn how to swim if you're never in the water? So we speak in paradox. If you don't risk anything, you risk everything. And then you have to spend money to make money. And I love this last one. Oh, no, I already did it. If you don't risk anything, you risk everything. So we think about paradoxes of performance. And what I want you to do is let's break these down and think about, well, these have been lessons that we've talked about over the last couple of years. But when we think about these, how do they make sense to you? But more importantly, what are you going to do with that information? So the first one that we talk about, the first paradox is over control gets you out of control. So I'm going to put it back on you. This has got to be a little bit more interactive than just me today. Over control will get you out of control. What do we mean by that? Yes, sir.
It's crazy to think that you control like every little detail.
Yeah.
Drive you nuts to where you aren't in control of anything.
Absolutely. Like we try to control every little detail, and then it'll drive you nuts because you realize I'm not in control of anything. So our first conversation, I mean, this was over Zoom, and we broke down the attitude quote that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% of how I react to it. And we made our list of the things we can and cannot control. Let's revisit that. What are the things in our life that we cannot control?
How others react.
How others react. And let's just extend about others, what they think, what they say, what they do, what they think about me, what they say about me, what they do to me, how big they are, how strong they are, how fast they are. I can't control any of that. That's the number one answer. What else can we not control? The weather, yes. If it's a little nippy, 59. Can't control that. I'm teasing you, Stephen. Yeah, man. Thanks for coming. This contract is officially over. But I did have a choice. I could have chosen to let it go the first time.
I was in control.
Yeah, you were. So what else? Okay, the weather, other people, what else can we not control?
Outcomes.
The outcome. Like I can't control the future. I can't control what this market's going to look like. I can't control the inventory. I can't control other agents. Can't control how long this is going to last. Can't control whether your team wins or loses. And so if I stay focused on the future and try to control that, that leads to an overwhelming increase in my anxiety. When I'm anxious, I'm not confident because I'm thinking about the future. And so I can't control the future. What's the opposite of the future that keeps us stuck? The past. There's not one thing you can do to change what's already happened to you, or what you didn't do, or what you should have done. Think about that painful experience, that most difficult thing. There's not one thing you can do to go back and change that. So you can only change how you think about it, and how you perceive it, and how you respond to it. And so we're going to make sure that over control gets you out of control. So the question I want to leave you with this: what are the things you're trying to control that are really controlling you? What are the things you need to let go of that are holding you back right now? Is it something you should have done, something you didn't do, that regret that just weighs tons on our heart and our minds? Or is it something you're so worried about what's coming? And so that's when that over control will get you out of control. What are you trying to control that's controlling you? Go back. I'll throw back definitions. This is a good lesson again for me to remember. I got to teach a little bit better. How do we define forgiveness? Or how did Lewis Meads define it, and we just stole it from him? And I just gave you a great clue, not Lewis Meads prior.
They can't control.
Absolutely. Forgiveness is where I don't let that person or that event control me or keep me from being who I was created to be or who I want to be. And then I can never teach forgiveness without thinking about what Peter said. 7 times enough, Jesus? Is that good? No, 70 times 7. Every time you think about that pain, every time you think about that hurt, every time you think about the things that are controlling you, you choose forgiveness. That's where freedom arises. So what are the things you're holding on to that are holding you back? Over control can get you out of control. Less is more. Less is more. What is that paradox? What do we mean by that?
Focusing on the things you can control is more effective than trying to control everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So even just going back to the previous one, like less worry about the outcome, less worry about what I should have done, more focus on the present moment. And so oftentimes when it gets a little busy and we get a little nervous, we try to do more. Like we try to be more. We get really busy on doing things that don't matter and things that don't move the needle. And so what do you need to do right now a little bit less of? Like what might that look like? You know, what I tell our coaches all the time, when I teach them this less is more, it's less criticism, it's more coaching. Like it's less burden of expectations, more joy. Like it's less plays, more about the players. And so what might that look like in your business? Help me out. What less what, more what? What we could do at Caine for your business that would help you be better today? Not all at once. That wasn't rhetorical. Less what? More this.
Less stress, more thriving.
Yeah, less stress, more thriving. Okay. Keep the momentum going.
Less repairs, more joy.
Yeah. More joy. Less what?
Less dwelling on the losses and more driving for the wins.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, less dwelling on the losses, more driving for those. Forget what's behind, focus on what's ahead.
Less assumptions, more living in reality.
Yeah, less assumptions, more living in reality. Yeah, let's even less assumptions about others, more positive intent. Let's choose to focus on the positive. How about your business? Less thinking, more doing. Right, we're getting in the stage of the year where we're talking about business planning, right? We're already there, which is unbelievable. I feel like we were just here talking about business planning. I know we had a record number of people who set a plan, who set a goal. I don't know how it went for you. But what might that look like is, okay, less thinking about what you need to do and more taking some ownership of what I am going to do. Less criticism, more evaluation. What is the difference, you think? I asked our players this last week between criticism and evaluation.
Criticism is negative.
Yeah, criticism is negative. I'm not sure who said that, but thank you. Criticism is negative. What else?
You can't learn from criticism.
You can't learn, right? It creates defensiveness. I think it stifles your growth, limits creativity, usually involves some kind of personal attack or an attack on yourself. How about evaluation? What does that look like?
You're evaluating what worked and didn't.
Guidance. Yeah, perfect.
You're evaluating what worked, what didn't, and reassessing so you can be more successful.
Yeah, separating who you are from what you do. Like you're taking ownership. And I think that really leads you to opportunities for growth. So that's one thing for you to think about maybe right now. How can you less criticize what you need to do, what you should have done, what you didn't do, and more evaluation? Hey, what's worked for you? What's not working? But more importantly, what are you going to do with it? So sometimes less is more. We think about taking the complex and make it simple. How do we put that into practice right now in this market? The harder you try, the further away you get. What does that mean? Or what do you think that's trying to tell us?
You can just be spinning your wheels and moving further away from your goal.
Yes.
You're kind of just stuck.
Yeah. And we can get into that. Like, now we do believe success comes with those who are too busy to be looking for it. But what you're saying is we're sometimes too busy doing things that don't matter. We're busy doing things that aren't relevant.
We're wasting energy, but we're still stagnant.
Yes. And I want something so badly that it overwhelms me. I want something so badly that I'm scared of it. I want something so badly that I'm not quite sure how to make it happen. And so with that nervous energy, I just get real busy doing something else. I get really busy doing things that don't matter. And so I do believe once you know what you really want, then you know what you're willing to give up to get it. And so how are you clarifying in your mind what you really want right now? And if we had to evaluate your actions and your habits and your mindset, how consistent with that, how are you spending your time and energy on things that really matter? What moves the needle for you? What are the keys to your success? Go back to less is more, how they work together. What do you need to get busy doing more of? What's moving the needle and busy doing less of? We already talked about that. So sometimes, like, we want it so badly, I get further and further away because I'm not quite sure how to attain it, and I don't have a plan, I don't have a process, I don't have a system. The fear of failure makes failure more likely.
When it comes to fruition.
There you go. You've heard me say, if there's one lesson I've learned in psychology, your brain will seek to develop the most dominant picture that you paint with which you attach the most emotion. And so the strongest emotion we experience as human beings is what? Fear. And so if I'm constantly living in a state of fear, what picture is my brain constantly developing? Who I don't want to be. How I don't want to be. I mean, are we living in a world full of fear right now? And so how do we overcome that? Like we talked about a vision statement. Like the only thing really stronger than fear is faith. Faith is what? Being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. So how do we get our thoughts and our minds and our actions aligned with who we want to be and how we want to be instead of who we don't want to be? Remember the stories I told about my son saying, don't say holy cow, say unbelievable. And about us telling our football players, hey, he's not going to go for it, don't jump off sides. And telling our quarterback, hey, we're going to call an RPO, a run pass option, whatever you do, don't throw it. And we talk to ourselves that way every day. Hey, don't get mad, don't get upset. Don't get overwhelmed. Don't be a jerk. Don't be a doofus if you go back to Sandlot. You have all these things about what we don't want to be. How do we get our brains working for us instead of against us? I'll go back to one of my favorite proverbs. The best warrior dies before he goes to battle. The best warrior dies before he goes to battle. That means what? Yeah, he dies to himself. And so what? You know, that is a way that nobody has ever answered that question. That he's died to himself for other people. And I love that. But how I usually think about that, he is dying before he goes to battle. He accepts death, so he fights to live. Like he's not scared of losing. He's not scared of dying. What I try to get our players to understand, if you die before you go to battle, you accept, hey, we may get beat, we play to win. Instead of playing not to lose. How would you characterize your mindset? Are you playing to win or are you playing not to lose? Are you so busy holding on to what you think you have that you're scared to let go and become something else, become a part of something greater than yourself? I love this idea of dying to yourself for the betterment of others. This is what it means to me about why you're at Caine. We all want to belong to something greater than ourselves. So think about this fear of failure. What picture are you constantly painting in your mind of your life, of your work, and of your family? And if your brain is developing that picture, your brain is just doing how it was wired. As you think, so you are. Playing it safe can be dangerous. What does that mean? What did Saban say his greatest competitor is? It's not Clemson, it's not Georgia, it's not Ohio State, it's complacency. Like it's complacency. And if you think about that, we all fall victim to this. Like we're pretty good at our jobs, we're pretty good partners, we're pretty good leaders, we're pretty good in the community, we're pretty good Christians, we're pretty good in our faith. Like good is the enemy of great. Like I love this quote Will Smith said one time, being realistic is the most commonly traveled road to mediocrity. And in this YouTube clip I watched several years ago, he said, is it realistic to walk into a room and hit a light switch and the lights come on? No. Like, fortunately, Edison didn't think so. Is it realistic to take a piece of sheet metal and wrap it together and fly it over the ocean? No. It's completely unrealistic, but fortunately the Wright brothers didn't think so. So playing it safe can be dangerous. Go back to our poem If. If you can take one heap of all your winnings and risk it all on one turn of pitch and toss and lose and start at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss. Like, how do you want to be in life? What are we going to, here's another question. I feel pretty good about my teaching so far. I'll keep asking questions and be humbled. What are we going to regret at the end of our life?
Everything you didn't do.
Everything you didn't do. Like, so what is a dream? What's something that you're trying to be, of trying to accomplish, that's holding you back, that you're just a little tentative, you're just a little scared, that you're letting the odds and the naysayers and the critics hold you back? So how are you playing it safe? What might it look like if we push that envelope a little bit? If we start taking action and narrow the gap, and this is what I'm trying to do in my life, is narrow the gap between idea and implementation. Got a lot of ideas, but how do I take some risk? How do I take some calculated risk? That's when I feel alive. What makes you feel alive? What's a dream? Who do you want to become that you're playing it safe, that you're scared to take a risk? Slowing down can make you faster. McCall and Seaver, Cold Trickle, days that know you are pretty slow. Days of Thunder. What happened in Days of Thunder?
The hurrier I go, the behinder I get.
Yeah, the hurrier I go, the behinder I get. I looked for this clip. Days of Thunder. Anybody remember that old movie? Right? Cold Trickle, what'd he do? He just ran. He just run the tires like full speed all the time. And the crew chief, I can't remember his name, in the movie, was so mad because he couldn't save his tires. Because Cold Trickle thought, like, if I got to go fast all the time. So he said, we're going to do two things. You run 50 laps, your speed. You run 50 laps taking care of your tires. We'll see who's faster when it's over. Conserving the tires made him faster. You know, how do we slow down to speed up? And what does that look like in your life? And this is coming from the biggest hypocrite of all this morning, because I'm probably one of the busiest people I know. As I wheel in here at 9:20 and James is over here going, where are you, Milt? I worked with Jane Harrison so long. She's over there talking, having coffee. She isn't worried at all. The rest of the team is up here going, where's Milt? So do as I say, not as I do. This is one of those lessons right here. Like being present. If performance takes place in the present moment, what keeps you from being present in the moment? What are you so busy doing that we talked about earlier? What did John Wooden say? We get so busy making a living, we forget about making a life. How do you quiet your mind? How do you quiet your body? How do you narrow your focus and increase your depth on the people and the things that matter most to you? That's what I think about when slowing down can make you faster. And in this world that we're in, that's really difficult. If there's one benefit that maybe, if I'm looking at a positive, optimistic view of the market slowing down a little bit, this maybe gives you a chance to think and breathe that you haven't had the last 2.5 years. You've been in survival mode. Or you've been surviving at a very high clip, but you've been keeping up with the busy. Somebody else to set the pace for how you've lived the last couple of years. So now if we can say, okay, I've got a little bit of space and bandwidth, and I take that breath, what are the keys to me being healthy? What are the keys to my well-being? What are the keys to my performance? And how do I slow down and get busy doing those things and get less busy doing things that don't matter and keep me from being who I want to be? Perfection hinders progress. You've heard me talk about good is the enemy of great. But perfection hinders progress. What do we mean by that?
We can get so stuck in the details that we forget to keep moving forward.
Yeah, we get so stuck in the details, and you
think you're done.
You think you're done. Like, I've accomplished it. Right? Go back to the difference between satisfied and content. We are called to be content. We aren't called to be satisfied. But also sometimes having to be perfect, we don't take action. Like, we want to find that balance of how do we get better, but how do we not get to be perfect? How do we free ourselves up? Because there's not one perfect person. Like, what are those perfectionist tendencies that it has to be just so before you take action? What are the limits that you're placing on yourself? Well, I have to look this way, I have to be this way, I have to act this way, I need to say it this way. That keeps you, like, perfection is also a predictor of procrastination. That's one theory of procrastination. We know the frontal lobe and all is involved, but sometimes that perfectionist mindset leads to procrastination. because it triggers that anxiety. What does anxiety do? Fight or flight. I just withdraw. I just hold back. I'm not quite sure I can do this. I'm not quite sure it's ever going to be perfect. You know, there's an old saying, I can't remember what general said it, that he would rather have a poorly executed, a poorly thought out plan, fully committed to and executed, than a great plan that's never implemented. And sometimes I think about perfection that exists in my mind, I don't take action on. And so how do you kind of remove that burden of expectation of how you need to show up and how you have to look and how you have to sound and what it needs to look like? How do you remove some of that burden so you're free to be in the moment and free to be your best in that moment? I think that's something I want you to think about. And then if we go, this potential adds pressure. Potential adds pressure. And there's an inverse relationship between pressure and performance once we get to a certain amount. What do we mean by this? Potential adds pressure.
Everyone's telling you how good you can be, then it's a lot more pressure to actually be that good.
Absolutely. Coming from a young man in the room, like what do we tell our kids? You're so smart. You are so talented. You are so bright. You are so athletic. You are so creative. Like what potential really means to me is it's something that you think I should have accomplished that I haven't accomplished yet. Like you're so smart, you should be doing this. You're so athletic, you should be doing this. You're so creative, you should be doing this. Like we should on ourselves, right? And that adds more pressure and keeps me from performing. It keeps me from taking risks. It keeps me from dying before I go to battle. Now, it beats not having any potential. I will give you that if you want to have a counter argument. So we can argue both sides. But go back to our growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. A growth mindset does what? Promotes growth. And we believe that my effort will equal success. So from a growth mindset, my success is due to my effort. It's due to something I can control. A fixed mindset is what? My success is due to me in comparison to you. So if I'm smarter than you, then great, I'm in a good position. If I'm faster than you and we're in a race, great, I'm in a good position. If I'm more talented than you, I'm in a good position. But what happens when I'm not? Like if my success is due to my ability, I can't control my ability, therefore there's limits on what I can achieve. That's why potential adds pressure. So the language we use about ourselves and about others sets limits. So let's remove that burden of potential, that burden of expectations. Let's create that mastery learning environment in our life where we catch people doing something right and we reward effort and the process and not the outcome. That's what I mean by potential adding pressure. Let's separate who we are from what we do. Let's really just focus on being the best that we can be. Hopefully that's good enough to accomplish what you want to accomplish. Okay, we're wrapping up on this last one. The probability of getting the outcome you want increases when you let go of the need to get it. We already kind of foreshadowed this a little bit earlier when we said the best warrior dies before he goes to battle. What does this mean to you as you look at this, as you read this?
When you're in real estate, don't focus on the commission.
Yeah. Even more so, as you think, so you are, that proverb is also interpreted, don't go out to eat with this kind of man because he's always worried about the cost. Like he's not enjoying the meal. He's not enjoying the transaction. He's not enjoying the opportunity. He's so worried about the outcome. It's a great interpretation of this in real estate. So worried about what's coming to me, I'm not worried about anything else. That stress really makes you selfish. The probability of getting the outcome you want increases when you let go of the need to get it. What do we know? When do we know we're trying to live up to expectations? What are our thoughts? I have to. I need to. I should, or I can't. Need to, have to, should adds that pressure, adds that anxiety. Takes me away from my process. The I can't leaves you helpless and hopeless. And there's nothing more discouraging or demotivating in life, knowing you need to do something, but telling yourself you can't do it. So I'm so focused on the outcome, it increases my anxiety, decreases my confidence. This is where we really want to understand our process. What's our plan to win? What are the keys to your success? Remember our hedgehog principle? How'd you finish the sentence? I'm at my best when? I want to get so busy doing what that success finds me. Go back to Viktor Frankl, his quote on success and happiness. He said this, don't aim for success like happiness must ensue. It cannot be pursued. And it only does so as the unintended side effect of submitting to a cause or a person greater than yourself. Then in the long run, you'll find success and happiness because you're too busy to be looking for it. That's what this means right here. Like the harder I try, the further away I get. Less focused on the outcome, more focused on the process. So these are some paradoxes of performance that I wanted to use today to kind of get you dialed back in on what's truly important. What are the things you can control? And I love this from Marcus Aurelius. It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. Who, what is controlling you that you need to let go of control of for today? So if we go through this list, I think about, okay, we just covered all of these. What are you going to do with this? What's something, somebody share, like what's something that made you think about that you're going to put into practice today? If you can walk away each time thinking, here's one thing I learned, here's one thing I'm going to do, we're going to get better at this. Now you guys make me feel a little bit better. Every time I come, I think, you know what? I've told them all I know. Right? Like they're good. Y'all made me feel better today that there still may be a need for some teaching and some opportunity for growth. So thank you for your silence. That makes me feel better that there is still a demand and opportunity to be relevant. So somebody, what's one you're going to take today and what are you going to do with it?
Just the control for me.
Yeah. So what's that look like, Jacob?
I have a little bit of a problem with it. Just admitting it is a step.
Yeah, it is. Awareness. Where's that first step? 12 step. 12 step. We'll get to what we're going to do with it next time.
But it is, and you have to control your control. That's what I'm going to try to do.
I appreciate you saying that. Jacob's a great example for all of us. It's really hard for us to quit doing what works for us. And that trying to control what you can't control has worked for you. And so we all have things in our life that have worked for us that maybe you don't really work. Maybe that's a new paradox. Like the things you think you work for don't really work. I maybe just came up with a new one. I got to chew on that. Thank you, Jacob, for that inspiration. Somebody else.
Potential adds pressure.
Yeah.
I thought you gave a couple examples that I'm like, oh, I've said that to my son. Oh, I've said that to my kid. And I've never really thought how it must make them feel. So I think that's a really great thing to just step back and think about what you say and how you say it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that because I think especially the language we tell our children. I spend a lot of time with our athletes at Clemson trying to help them separate who they are from what they do and a lot of people in our life. And so if we, at a young age, associate their success with their talent, then we try to destruct that or break that down, deconstruct that the rest of their life. And so it's all well-intentioned. We've all fallen short and done that. But what the research suggests, if I tell them they're so smart, they're going to avoid taking risks because guess what? They don't want to prove that they aren't smart. If I'm telling them they're so athletic, they're going to avoid their effort because they don't want to prove you wrong if you think they're so athletic.
And I think I'm doing the opposite, right? I think I'm building their confidence, not adding pressure, but it's a nice correlation to stop and think about.
Well, one of the things that person's a natural born agent. Mm-hmm. They're just a natural born salesperson. They can sell ice to an Eskimo. Right? We talk about that's a fixed mindset. Now there are some personality variables that can contribute to that, but that's something to think about. Anybody else? One more.
Number 4.
Number 4.
Yep.
So what are you going to do with that?
Try to stop the head trash.
Okay. So that's taking a risk, right? That you had to be fearful to say that. But let's reframe that in a positive way. If I stop the head trash, what am I still thinking about? If I don't want to think about head trash, I'm still thinking about the head trash. So let's frame it in a positive way. Like remember, faith is the only thing stronger than fear. Who are you trying to become? And let that be the dominant image in your mind. Well, thank you for letting me be here again. Thank you for letting me be human and share with you some thoughts and ideas. And again, what does it mean? What does it mean to you? But the most important thing is, what are you going to do with that information? So that's my hope, that you can always think about what you learn and what are you going to do. So This is how I end my talk for our football team, is each week, each moment with Milt, they see this slide. This is the last slide. Accept the challenge. What's the greatest challenge we really face? It's us. You know, I think Wrigley said a man's doubts and fears are his own worst enemy. And so if you can accept the challenge of who you are and not set limits on who you can become, that's what freedom really means. So thank y'all. You need that?
You have time for a question?
Yeah.
So, you know, one of the things, like Tristy brought up, you know, introducing mindfulness and meditation into your lifestyle. It's been a struggle for me sometimes. Do you have any input on creating habits? I know there's a lot of reads out there as it relates to how you implement a new habit in your life.
So the brain is so lazy that it just goes on autopilot, right? And so it just picks up sights and sounds and clues and automatically responds to our environment. So the best way to create a new habit is to create a new change in your environment. So a new time and a space, so your brain has to consciously engage in the present. So if we get up, we're just creatures of habit, and your brain, you do the same thing every day, your brain just kind of gets on autopilot. So we have to disrupt that routine and think about the time and the place and a constant reminder. So that's one way we can talk about creating a new habit. The other is you need some accountability. You know, who are you inviting into your life to help hold you accountable? I'll give you a good example. My eating habits kind of go high and low. You know, they kind of, depending on whether it's good or bad. I think it's really good, the food I like. And I've been trying to think of what I need to do to kickstart it. And I went to breakfast last week, and I invited a guy to breakfast who's intermittent fasting, which is probably not the best way to have a business meeting when he's fasting. So if somebody says, I can meet you for coffee or lunch, just some free information for you today, free of charge, they don't eat breakfast. I was like, well, let's go eat breakfast. And I walked away, and he was telling me about the benefits of intermittent fasting, and there's a benefit to still being an impulsive decision maker. That was last Wednesday. Thursday, I started intermittent fasting. And so I told my wife and my daughters, because they'll hold me accountable to it for sure. But I called the guy that I had breakfast with, and I said, hey, by the way, just to let you know, next time you see me, you need to ask about intermittent fasting, because I started doing that. I have no idea whether it's going to work. I'm starving right now, to be quite honest.
But you got lots of energy, right?
Yes. But there are a couple of ways to look at that. Hey, what's that one thing? Another thing, Stephen, we take on too many habits. We try to make rapid changes. Instead of going back to that lesson more, what is that one thing that you can start small, that you can start doing to get you in the right place? And then how do you create a new time, new space, new environment for your mind to adapt to it? And then invite somebody into your life that's just going to hold you accountable and not bring shame and guilt, because that doesn't help anybody, but just some encouragement along the way.
Thank you, Milt.
Yep. Was that it?
Fantastic.
You're scared to ask another one because that took so long to answer.
No, it's great. And I want to speak about perfection because of my observations in this organization. And, you know, I am a perfectionist. There's no doubt about it. It's something I've struggled with all my life. You and I have talked about this before. At IBM, we had a philosophy, 85% is good enough. Put it in place and make it better. And that was something that, even though that was our business practice, I still have to work on it, and I still struggle with it, as does our leadership team. We always want to be perfect for all of you. I would remind you some advice that I've given to real estate agents before when we go into business planning, when you're talking about your database, when you're talking about investing and advertising, when you're talking about whatever that next step that I'm going to do is, oftentimes we're paralyzed by perfection. We want to make it perfect. And sometimes, most of the time, you know what, 85% is good enough, and then make it better. So those are my thoughts. Thanks, Milt. We appreciate it. And you are back November